Do you think it's worth it if it catches, even one rapist? Is it worth doing this type of testing?
Absolutely.
The family's saying it would put their mind at ease if you would take a polygraph test. Why don't you want to do that? Mr. Cheney, if you're found guilty, it is a first-degree felony.
It's inappropriate to make a comment on a case that's pending. It's also inappropriate to chase him down the courthouse.
It's also inappropriate to take people's money and not build their homes.
And while Carol Leiderbach has been buried here since July, I uncovered that the Summit County Board of Elections received her mail-in ballot on October 16th, nearly 3 months after she passed away. I spent hours reading through hundreds of emails, and they gave me an unfiltered look at the thoughts, fears, and even missteps of our local health leaders as we plunged into the reality of a pandemic.
The demonstrators are arguing with the officers why they're taking away their signs. I've been here since about 2 o'clock, and there have been long lines this entire day. At the Justice Center, you just heard it there, more tear gas going off. It is getting harder to breathe. That's why we're back here a few blocks up.
And if you're worried about paying your utility bills, I want to know about it. So email me at confidential@wkyc.com. And of course, our campaign will not solve the utility crisis. We know that, Russ. Our goal is to bring some short-term relief for those who really need it right now.
Certainly. Let me ask you this. How will applicants be vetted to make sure that money is going to the right place?
It's a great question, and that's exactly why we teamed up with CHN Housing Partners. They'll be doing the vetting to make sure that only those truly in need are getting help.
Hours after a 3 News investigation exposed inaccuracy on the state's website that tracks cases, that page was quickly removed, and then another list was released yesterday. But that data remains riddled with errors at a time when accurate information is so very key. 3 News investigator Rachel Polansky has been leading our coverage on this story.
Natalie Corriveau is part of a growing number of Ohioans suffering through the pandemic with a loved one in a nursing home.
We haven't seen her for, I guess it's been 4 weeks now.
She understands the need to isolate her grandmother, Patricia. She doesn't understand the lack of answers from health leaders.
Honestly, just want the truth of what is the real deal.
Natalie's grandmother was diagnosed with COVID-19 over the weekend, and Natalie's been relying on 3 News to keep her informed because of the inaccuracies on the DOH website.
You were able to find at least 5 cases at the one specific facility my grandmother was at, and the state website doesn't even have any facilities in the county.
Natalie's right. While the Toledo-Lucas County Health Department reported 24 facilities with active COVID-19 cases, none were listed on the state's website until this afternoon. I took these findings to the Ohio Department of Health. For family members, they want a comprehensive picture. Why isn't the state providing that?
The reason is because we didn't have an accurate way to collect that information from the local health department.
Spokeswoman Melanie Amato admits there have been reporting discrepancies. She says prior to April 15th, counties did not have a uniform way to collect and report COVID-19 cases. Now she says they do.
And so the bugs and the kinks for the local health departments to report this information need to be worked out, and we understand that.
I continued to press her on the public's desire for more information. What about recoveries and what about deaths? That's something else that a lot of people want to see.
Recovery is a great question, and I don't think is a question we actually thought of to start to provide for nursing homes. So that is a question I will take back to the officials higher up than me to figure out if that's something we can do. For deaths, the governor announced that we will now collect that information by county level. And we will start collecting that information, and that information will show on our database starting next Wednesday.
But for thousands of families like Natalie's, these delays only cause more worry about their loved ones.
That she'll pass and we won't be able to have any heads up, and we won't be able to do anything to be able to, give her a hug or just say I love you on the phone.
All right, now if you have a loved one in a nursing home, that website by the state is now up and running, and they did just update it today. That is available at wkyc.com. I do want to note, though, these are just current cases, not all cases, as we've been continually requesting. Rachel Polansky, 3 News.
Rachel, thank you so much for continuing on this. I know there's thousands of families who are literally every story they are getting that information, and it is so important.
Here, match these up.
Even in these happy moments with her daughter,
Who are those guys?
Anna
And Elsa.
Ashley Parrott's mind drifts to a darker place in 2003.
It's always going to have an impact on me.
When she was violently beaten and raped by her boyfriend.
The rage kept going and going.
Eventually, a family member called 911. Ashley's rapist was arrested and she was rushed to the hospital. Doctors treated her extensive injuries, but a forensic exam, one that would collect critical evidence of the rape, was overlooked. Something that doesn't surprise Ruth Downing.
We have very few forensic nurses in the state.
Downing is a forensic nurse, trained to recognize sexual trauma and document the evidence.
We provide a thorough head-to-toe evaluation, document all of that with body maps, and we also gather evidence for the crime lab.
While there are more than 200,000 registered nurses in Ohio, a 3 News investigation has found that only 51 are sexual assault nurse examiners, commonly called SANE nurses, certified to treat adult sexual assault patients, and just 27 are certified to treat children.
Please go to...
And that critical shortage means rape survivors could be getting turned away at the ER.
They may be asked to go to the next closest hospital that has a forensic nurse. So they may need to travel hours away.
Only 1 in 3 of Ohio's 250 plus hospitals have a SANE nurse program, and most of them are in urban areas, leaving rural communities exposed.
Here in Ashtabula County, they've got to go to Lake County or Cuyahoga County.
Prosecutors in smaller counties worry that fewer SANE nurses could mean fewer survivors coming forward.
The sexual assault exam is essential to any prosecution. So if they can't get that done or just give up because it's too hard, that puts the case at a disadvantage.
In Ashley's case, the rural hospital where she was treated did not have a SANE nurse on call, and it was almost an afterthought when she was examined 4 days later at a different hospital miles away. For her, the SANE nurse uncovered injuries that bolstered a rape charge against her attacker, while reaffirming her decision to come forward.
I'm not scared of him anymore.
Giving her a sense of empowerment.
You can do it.
Something she hopes to instill in her daughter.
2 minutes with these.
2 minutes with these.
This shortage of sexual assault nurses is a national problem. In Illinois, though, a new law requires that hospitals be staffed with these nurses around the clock. In Ohio, our lawmakers have yet to take action. To look at a full list of Ohio hospitals with SANE programs, head on over to WKYC.com. When Leanne Dunkel looks at her daughter, she sees a soaring athletic teen, an honor roll scholar. Certainly not a victim of shaken baby syndrome.
My mom was holding her when they came in and took her.
But once upon a time, that's all doctors saw. And they were wrong.
He didn't want to hear anything we had to say.
Years don't soothe the sting of that failed diagnosis. Instead, tearful memories flood a mother's thoughts.
I couldn't take my kid home, and they said I would be arrested if I did.
She was at Akron Children's Hospital, where renowned pediatric Dr. Darrell Steiner was uncovering case after case of shaken baby syndrome. Today, it's a hotly debated science in both the medical and legal communities. More than 200 criminal cases are unraveling across the nation, while others are making pleas of innocence from behind bars.
There are definitely people serving long sentences, life sentences, for what I believe to be bad science and bad medicine.
Shaken baby syndrome grew prominent in the 1990s, punctuated by the trial of British au pair Louise Woodward. After that, the diagnosis exploded, most notably around Akron, ranking the city 3rd in the entire nation, largely because of Dr. Steiner and his care center.
The pediatrician would become the doctor, the prosecutor, the police officer, and the jury. The pediatrician would say, this is abuse, and that put a caregiver or parent's life into a living hell.
In recent years, the science is shifting. Doctors are recognizing other causes, such as simple falls. Right now, the Ohio Innocence Project is working with 2 women serving life sentences, Tiffany Khaleesi and Marcia Mills, both claiming innocence, both diagnosed by Dr. Steiner.
These are men and women who have been separated from their family for decades.
The Dunkels came close to being one such family. In 2006, they lost custody of their newborn for 4 months. It began when the infant girl fell 3 feet from a table, and to be safe, they took her to Children's Hospital.
It was a very bad decision.
Baby Rachel was examined by Dr. Steiner, who quickly rendered a startling diagnosis. Rachel's future brain development forever altered by this physical abuse.
I thought it was a mix-up, it was a mistake.
There's no way she was shaken.
The diagnosis set in motion a series of events. Step 1, baby Rachel was taken away by Children's Services. What followed was months of court hearings and competing medical opinions. Finally, a judge ruled in the Dunkels' favor. They got their baby back, but nothing else. Not even an apology.
It's like it happened for no reason.
It's why the Dunkels want to tell their story about Shaken Baby, to help others wrongly accused.
I just never knew how easy it was for someone to take your child from you.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Like many 6-year-olds, Shiloh Shaw loves music. But his taste is more refined than most his age.
He loves Mozart, mostly. He really, really loves Mozart.
And that's not all that sets Shiloh apart.
I have to get him lead tested still every 6 months.
A blood test 4 years ago found that he had unsafe lead levels, nearly 3 times what the CDC considers safe.
It wasn't, the case of him eating paint chips. It was him more so breathing in the lead that was, in the house.
It took about a year for the lead to clear Shiloh's system.
Do you believe that Shiloh's learning disabilities are related to his lead exposure?
That definitely has something to do with it. The fact that he got lead from this house at such a young age caused him to be on the borderline of the autism spectrum.
Medical experts say that lead poisoning does not cause autism. Lead poisoning can, however, delay language and lower IQ.
So, later down the road when he's in school, he may have some difficulties with learning.
That's Stephanie McConney from the county health department. She's notified whenever a child tests for elevated lead levels. She'll inspect the child's home, pinpoint the lead source, and give the property owner 90 days to remove it. If the owner refuses, the county issues a vacate order. Today, Ohio has 1,100 such homes, and 500 of them are in Cuyahoga County.
Anyone living in a home with an order should be concerned.
But are they? 3 News visited some cited homes.
When did you find out that there was lead in this house?
It was last year.
Evelyn Sloan knows that there's lead in her Cleveland home, but she says she can't afford repairs, which can run into the thousands.
So I just said forget it.
And in Cleveland Heights, these tenants know that there's lead inside their rental, but they say their landlord promises a remedy.
So have they done that work yet?
Not yet. It's in process. Yeah.
And let's circle back to Lisa Shaw, who's known her rental home has been on the vacate list for 3 years. She blames it on her landlord, who would not return my calls. Meanwhile, lead poisoning in Flint, Michigan sparked national outrage. But researchers at Case Western Reserve found that 10% of Flint children have elevated lead levels, while Cleveland averaged 13%.
For those children, the earlier we can identify it, the earlier we can start to intervene, the more capacity this child has.
And we want to make this clear. This is not just a city problem.
It doesn't matter where the property is. It doesn't matter the income of the family. If it was built before 1978 and still has some of the original paint, you have potential for hazards.
So if you're a tenant and your landlord won't fix a lead hazard, what recourse do you have? In Cleveland, a new law will require landlords to make rentals lead-free starting in March 2021. And if you live in the suburbs, you can complain to the Attorney General's office. But as you can see in Lisa Shaw's case, vacate orders have very little teeth. And for kids like Shiloh, who have already been poisoned,
what kind?
It's unclear what their futures hold.
As for Lisa's landlord, well, he lives in New Jersey. I have been in contact with his property manager, and she tells me that she's given him my messages. So far, though, he has not returned my calls. Meanwhile, there are grants that you can apply for to help you with lead remediation. I'll put all that information for you on WKYC.com. When it comes to online classes, we're all going back to school.
Some just either call your name to make sure you're here, or they just check the list of everyone that's in the class at the moment.
Students, teachers, and parents.
In a nutshell, chaotic.
All taking a crash course on remote learning. And the grades are mixed.
Kind of difficult. Like, it's the learning by myself, really. The learning by myself, it's kind of difficult.
A survey of hundreds of districts around the country exposed students in high-poverty communities were spending less time in their remote classes last spring. A 3 News investigation looking just at the data from the start of this fall semester suggests that problem still persists in Cuyahoga County, as suburban schools scored higher than inner-city schools in one key area: attendance.
It's good. It's an adjustment, but it's working out.
In suburban Parma, where Abby Maloro goes to school, the district is seeing near-perfect attendance. 97% logging on at her school, Normandy High, and 98% at Parma High School. 3 News found similar results at Shaker Heights High School and Beechwood High School.
I say fair. It's going fair.
But in Cleveland Metro schools, where 37,000 students have been in virtual classes since March, 3 News found roughly 5,600 students not regularly logging on.
Sometimes a Chromebook goes out, and we've been up here twice to get new Chromebooks because this one will go dead.
While Cleveland Metro Schools has given students Chromebooks and hotspots, Brenda Cook-Weems says her son Thomas often has problems logging on. How many times has that happened?
Twice. This is the second time.
And perhaps even more troubling is Cleveland's high school attendance. The most recent data available shows only 63% of students logging on at Thomas's school, Glenville High, on par with the 64% average attendance at John F. Kennedy and 66% at Collinwood High School.
Yes, I am very disappointed. 63% is not good.
Parents of elementary-age children are also reporting challenges.
If you don't have anyone at home to help you log on, then sometimes it's hard for the kids to log on. By me being at home with him is a little easier for me to help him because he can't log on his own.
It's going to take us some time to recover from this pandemic, which we're not out of yet.
Eric Gordon, the superintendent of Cleveland Metro Schools, acknowledges the challenges and simply tells us they're working on it.
Our attendance liaisons and attendance office are trying to reach out and find those kids that are just absolutely not signing on. When the pandemic is finally over, there's going to be an educational recovery, not just in Cleveland, but in this country.
Rachel Polansky, 3 News.